received a couple of questions on rigging beads and jigs and so forth, and rather than respond to several different messages, I figured I would make a video instead and kill two birds with one stone. By no means is this information the only way or the best way to do it, but it's what's worked for me in the past. It's meant to be a basic starting point to get you started, and this information will work for center pinning and spinning reels, whichever you prefer. Our objective is to create the most natural drift possible. So first, we're going to start with our float. Floats come in many shapes and sizes for different water conditions and budgets. What we're going to do is we're going to take two pieces of silicone tubing, one for the top, one for the bottom, feed our main line through those pieces of tubing, and then attach one to the top, one for the bottom. What this allows us to do is adjust our float for different depths. It also allows us to switch out to a different float for different water conditions. After we attach our float, we're going to go down to our shot. A side note on shot is do not use the removable shot. You know, the ones with the little wings on it. You want to use round shot. What happens is the shot with the wings on them, when you cast, it causes your line to twist. The air catches those little wings and twists your line. It also pretty much does the same thing while it's underwater. The water current will catch those wings and put line twist in your line. And line twist is bad. We want to avoid as much line twist as possible, although it's impossible to eliminate all of it. So what we're going to do is we're going to attach our shot. Typically, a basic rule of thumb, and this doesn't go for everybody, like I said, this is just basic information. You want to attach enough shot so your float sits in the water right at the color change line. Some guys like their float to sit higher, some guys, so they'll add less shot. What we want to do is we want to start with larger shot and work our way down to smaller shot. Some guys like to bunch their shot all up towards the bottom of the float. Some guys like to spread it all out. Some guys like to spread it all out but double up their shot. Now, I find that if I'm fishing, say, shallower water, I tend to bunch my shot up closer to the base of the float. If I'm fishing, say, deeper, faster water, I tend to spread my shot out a little bit more, so this way it gets my bead or my jig down to the fish faster. If you're going to spread your shot out, what I usually do is I take my shot and my shot is closer together towards the float, and then as I work my way down to my leader, my shot progressively gets farther apart and progressively smaller. So, and just a side note, I'm using this heavy red line for demonstration purposes only. So after we attach our shot, we're now going to attach a swivel, a little micro swivel. This serves a couple different purposes. One, it allows us an easy way to attach our main line to our leader line. Typically our main line is going to be monofilament and our leader line is going to be fluorocarbon. I like to run an 8-pound main line and a 6-pound leader line. Some guys run lighter, some guys run heavier. Again, this is my personal preference. And a side note on line, is if you use a longer rod, say 10 foot or above, you can use a lighter pound test, because that rod, what it's going to do is it's going to act like a spring, and it's going to absorb a lot of that energy. So you can use a lighter pound test. A longer rod also helps you keep a lot of line off of the water, which is what we want to do to try and create the most natural drift possible. You want to keep as much line off of the water as possible. So the difference in strength for our main line and our leader line from 8 to 6 serves a couple of different purposes. One, our leader line is what's going to be in the fish's field of view. It's what the fish sees. So you want to use a fluorocarbon line, because fluorocarbon almost completely disappears in water. Another reason is if you get a snag and you're unable to work it out, typically what will happen is your leader line will break before your main line. And rather than having to retie your entire setup, now you get to keep all of your shot and your nice $3 float. So now you only have to retie your leader and everything below it. So after your leader line is on, we come to our bead. You take your bead and you feed the leader line through the center hole, and then you're going to peg it with either a toothpick or these peggets, which is a tapered silicone, and I cut mine in half so I get 2 out of 1. And then you, like I said, you feed it through that hole, and then you trim off the top and you trim off the bottom. This allows your bead to stay in place and allows you to easily adjust it up and down. After your bead, you're going to attach your hook. Hook's size depends, for me anyway, on water clarity. I typically, in clear water, will use a size 12 or 14 hook, and in stained water, I'll use either a size 8 or a size 10. Now, when you're fishing a bead, you can either fish the bead by itself, you can fish the bead with a sack on the hook, or you can get rid of the bead, just fish a sack, or you can get rid of the bead and the sack and tie on a jig. The jigs you can fish by themselves, or you can tip them with something like a spike or a waxy. Now, beads themselves come in thousands of different colors. They come in plastic, they come in glass, they come with little slots in them so you don't have to retie every time you switch out a bead. There's soft plastic beads. They come in different sizes, anywhere from a 6mm up to a 14mm, sometimes smaller, sometimes bigger. Typically in Western New York, what we want the most popular size is either an 8mm or a 10mm. Now, if you're fishing clear water, you're going to want to stick with a smaller bead, like an 8mm or lower, and fish more natural colors. If you're fishing stained water, you're going to typically want to fish like a 10mm bead or larger, and probably brighter colors. But by no means be afraid to switch it up. These rules aren't hard and fast, and there's plenty of times where I've caught fish on something or some way that I was like, no way, I'm never going to catch anything. So don't be afraid to go rogue. So I hope that this video has been at least somewhat educational. And with that being said, good luck and tight lines.